that in and has a link to transition as well. It comes from a Dr. Charlotte Jones, who was a GP in Monmouth for a long time and lives in a house on New Dixon Road called Tigwin. That was designed by the founder of Transition Monmouth in many ways, one Simon Brown. And her question was, or is, this government promised to stop fracking after it caused an earthquake. It'll be the same as Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. 3 days later they decided that fracking should continue in England. David Davis does not believe in climate change. They have been in power 9 years, during which time much of the NHS work has been outsourced to private firms, which have to make a profit for their shareholders. They have to pay expensive agency staff, nurses and midwives, etc., starving the NHS of resources. How can we trust him and Mr. Johnson with...
And fracking in England was banned by the British government when the science told them that it wasn't possible to stop earthquakes. So the British government take the view that they will follow the science, and that's that. The next one, I mean, honestly, I've said over and over again that I definitely do believe in climate change, and that that carbon dioxide is a global warming gas, and therefore it does have an impact on climate. I usually say it now at the start of any debate I have about climate, but I've met probably with some of the people here at my surgery in other places as well, so you'll have heard me say so, although I do enjoy debating the science of it. And then the next part of the question is veered suddenly onto the National Health Service. Look, I mean, we have been in power, in fact, in Wales running the National Health Service for 20 years. The last 20 years, the National Health Service in Wales has been run entirely by the Labour government, sometimes with Plaid Cymru, sometimes with the Liberal Democrats. Whatever happens, the UK government has no say over the National Health Service in Wales. What I would say is this, and I appreciate this is being filmed. I appreciate there are quite a lot of Labour activists who, I must say, are very friendly people. Thank you for that. Please believe me and hold me to this. Take the phones out and record it. If I were re-elected, I would never, ever, ever support the National Health Service being sold off, privatised or dismantled in any way. And please, please believe me on that one. Record my words and hold me to that particular promise. The NHS in Wales has, it is true, under Vaughan Gethin, the Labour Minister, it has put some work out finally. It has, for example, opened up a proton beam cancer centre in Newport, the Rutherford Centre, so people are able to get proton beam therapy for cancer, which they wouldn't get on the National Health Service. But of course, those cancer patients who are being treated in this way certainly don't have to pay for it. They're getting something that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. So, to be fair, I mean, I have some issues with the way the NHS is run in Wales. The waiting lists, for example, are longer, and there has been less access to cancer drugs. But this is a step forward. This is definitely a good thing. And it certainly isn't the same as privatising. I don't think Welsh Labour want to privatise the NHS, correct me if I'm wrong, but they do use private companies sometimes, and the same applies in England. Once again, Dr. Jones, if you're here, I promise you, I would never vote for, never support any political party or any law that would privatise the NHS or sell it off to Americans or dismantle it in any way. Thank you.
His question is, the IPCC, whose data was once used in a speech by Mr. Davis to back up a point, indicate just 1.5 degrees warming as catastrophic. Shouldn't Britain be one of the countries making the biggest steps towards carbon neutrality to compensate for those countries who cannot or will not? Is that right? Fine. Would you like to take that first?
Yeah. I think we have to lead the way, and I think we can take some level of responsibility for others in that we can lead the way, but actually everyone globally has to play their part in order for this to work. I think that the things that we can do here are quite extraordinary. So we have major steel manufacturing plants which have really struggled, and whole communities in Wales are struggling because of the whole thing that's going on around steel and the pricing. But actually, you know what's made out of steel? Wind turbines are made out of steel. We can produce a huge amount, and other things which will really help this situation. So I think we need to lead the way. Another thing that we need to lead the way in is plastic pollution. So I personally thought that I understood about the levels of plastic pollution and understood the level of the problem. And then this time last year, I was commissioned to make a show for children. And I did quite a lot of research. And I was absolutely appalled. And I think that while some people have a little bit of an idea, because they know that it's an issue and we've got to buy plastic bags now, except as we learned yesterday, bags for life are now being bought so much that none of them are being used for life. And so that's a whole issue of its own. We're now creating stronger plastic rather than getting rid of it. So the way that we make stuff, the way that we use stuff, the way that we get rid of stuff, we need to lead in that too. And going back to that young person's question, one of the other things that I would want to do is ban single-use plastic in this constituency. Not just in this town, but in this constituency. I don't think that quite answers your question, other than to say Labour are going to do a phenomenal amount. I can read the list, if you want, as my good friend on the left did, of her manifesto, but you can read the manifesto and everything that we're going to do. It has to transform how we live. So, you know, we're talking about football pitch sizes of solar panels. We're talking about investing in the manufacturing of electric cars, not just hoping that some people are going to buy them and providing some plug points. You know, we're talking about really grasping this, not just tinkering around the edges. So, do we take responsibility? Let's take responsibility for ourselves right here and right now.
Yes, of course we should be taking the biggest steps towards zero carbon, and indeed it's in our programme as I read out to you. And some people do say that what we do here, because we're a comparatively small country compared with places like China, India, countries in South America, that it's not worth bothering because what we do is so small compared with what's not being done in those countries. But that same argument can be made by us personally. It's not worthwhile my turning out an extra light in my house because the lights are on in the office block over there. Or, you know, I can turn up the central heating and keep my house really hot because after all, so much is wasted in the shopping malls. I think we have to take responsibility for what we can do something about, and that applies personally, where we need to take responsibility for our own personal efforts to go as zero carbon as we can. As a country, we have to take responsibility for our country's efforts to go zero carbon. As well as being a physical problem in tackling climate change, it's a moral problem. And we have to do that. And if we don't do it, we need to set examples and precedents. And if we don't do that here, then how can we negotiate with China and India and Brazil to try to get them to join in if we're not already doing it? As it is, because of the Industrial Revolution starting here, we've put an awful lot more contaminants into the whole of the planet than they have. So we have a really bigger responsibility to set an example and try to get it down again.
I think absolutely we need to be an example for other countries and what we can actually do to make our planet a lot greener and a lot safer for our future generations. However, a lot of the policies that have been introduced and a lot of the plans that are suggested put the emphasis and put the effort onto average people like you or me. Now, you know, a latte tax or increased plastic bag charges, that is putting the blame for blame for things onto us. However, in 2010, a UN published a report which showed that the top 3,000 companies in the world contributed to over £3 trillion pounds worth of environmental damage. Now, as I said before, the Amazon fires earlier this year showed how much demand for increased agricultural goods and increased products have changed the way our environment works. Now, what we need to do is, as communities, as countries, we need to show that we will not let these companies, we will not let big corporations dictate how environmental policy is enforced. And one way we can particularly do this is through trade, by banning imports of agricultural goods that were grown on deforested lands, on ensuring that big corporations are held to account for the damage that they cause, ensuring that they are taxed for the carbon that they produce, or given fines if they produce too much plastic. Every shopping centre, every supermarket in this country produces an extraordinary amount of plastic. But it is on us to bring our own bags to try and make this change. No, it should be on them putting forward these changes and not having the plastic in the first place. This is the change that needs to happen. And we also need to ensure that, I know it's not being brought up yet, and I know people will hate me for bringing this up, but we do, as part of the EU, we are part of a massive trading bloc. We are a small country, we are, but part of the EU, part of this massive trading bloc. We can influence other countries. If we have principles at the heart of all trade negotiations, where we say the goods that you produce must be environmentally sustainable, the things that you sell us must come from sustainable sources. Everything that you produce and everything that we buy from you must be with these values in mind. And I think, only by having this outlook to global trade, only by having, these principles when we talk to corporations, when we talk to businesses, to make sure that they are playing their part too. It is not just left on our shoulders to carry this burden. That we make sure that the people at the very top are playing their part too. I think that is the only way that we can, as a society, we can make that change and alleviate climate change.
Thank you for your question, sir, because it goes to the heart, really, of the reason why most of the major parties are saying 2050 or 2045. Because I think your point is that we started this when the Industrial Revolution happened, and therefore we should be the first to almost to take a penalty for it, to pay the price for that. I understand what you're saying, but the problem is this, as we, I think, all acknowledge, on the panel anyway, if we were to become carbon neutral tomorrow, that in itself would not have any impact on the climate, because we just don't emit enough of the carbon dioxide for it to make a difference. The whole point is the rest of the world need to follow. Now, are the rest of the world more likely to follow if they see us do it tomorrow, hypothetically, and they say, wow, that's quite amazing? I mean, let's be honest, there'd be consequences. Nobody would be driving, flying, there'd be no manufacturing going on, there would be job losses, the things that we see. I mean, we saw a couple of hundred jobs being lost in Bridgend, maybe 1,000 recently in a car manufacturing plant, and people were very rightly, understandably upset by that. We then saw the Welsh and UK government working to bring in more car manufacturers, Ineos and Aston Martin, to ensure that some of those jobs were replaced. It wouldn't be easy to turn around and tell hundreds of thousands of people that they're suddenly going to be out of work. If we do this over 30 years, it is achievable. And by doing it that way...
Too little, too late.
Well, most of the political parties, sir, I mean, the Labour, the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives are all of the view that if we try to do it too soon, the other countries wouldn't follow. Do you really want me to turn around to people in Bridgend and tell them that they're going to be out of work?
Not good enough.
Can I tell 1,000 car manufacturer workers on a production line that they're out of work tomorrow? If we take it over 30 years...
Listen, your Brexit strategy is put people out of work already.
Well,
I've got a company over the pub, and you are threatening jobs over there.
I'm really happy.
You're not that interested in jobs.
Well, I'm very interested. You'll be pleased, I hope, that unemployment figures are the lowest they've been for 40 years.
Sorry for interrupting. I don't think we should heckle because I wasn't heckled.
Well, there's not enough of audience participation. Everybody's sitting here listening to you lot rattle on, and when it comes to it, you're not actually going to put half of this into place. All you're trying to do is buy our votes. I mean, we've had all this austerity over all these years, and all you parties, or your two parties in particular, are throwing money at the electorate now to get elected. Well, what a massive joke. I don't know how you get away with it. I don't know how you got the balls to stand up there and even come out with it.
I mean, it wasn't a Brexit question, but I'm happy to obviously talk about that as well. Look, my point on the question the gentleman asked was if we go any quicker, in my opinion, then the rest of the world will not follow, but there would be a lot of people out of work. And on the issue of plastics, I would be quite happy to support legislation in the Assembly. Well, obviously I won't be in there, but the Conservatives would support the Labour government if they want to ban single-use plastics in Wales, and they have the power to do that now. And yeah, I think there was a third point, but you've rather got me there, so you throw me off a little bit off my track. So I'll leave it there and hand over to someone else. Thank you.
Pass it on to Ian.
Okay. So the question is, should we be leading the way? Absolutely, and for a number of reasons. Sorry, save the applause for a minute. Let me give you the reasons first. First of all, the basic one, and one that David alluded to, the polluter pays. We're the ones that have actually created the mess. And I don't think mean we in the UK, but we in the Western industrialised nations are the ones that have created this problem. Created those industries, and we're the ones that historically have put most of the carbon into the atmosphere. So we bear a responsibility. But I think there's a bigger issue is that also we have the capacity to do it quicker. Because we've got the technology and we've got the industry and we've got the ability to do it. And it won't be. And we're not talking about just switching off carbon tomorrow. Let's not put a straw man argument up in front of this. But we are saying that yes, over the next 20 years or so, we can transform this because we can invest. And it will be about creating jobs. It won't be about creating mass unemployment. It'll be about creating jobs. Types of jobs like, for example, the factory that was on the Isle of Wight that was producing wind turbines that went bust because the government kept changing its mind on what its renewable energy policy was going to be. So there is plenty of jobs that have been lost because of government inaction or indecision, jobs that can be created by investment in renewable energy. But I'll say a few other things as well about this, is that yes, we've got the technology to do it, so we can do it quicker. And if we're going to show the way, it's not just showing a moral lead, it's also about developing that technology in order to be able to do it so that other people can then adopt that technology. And that also then comes to actually how are we supporting other countries for a just transition so that they can decarbonise. So a lot of what we do, and a lot of our both our aid budget, but also the money that we're putting in through the Paris Agreement and others to help other countries to develop their own technologies to decarbonise is crucially important. Because at the end of the day, as climate change effects become more and more severe, it is the poorest around the world who are going to suffer the most. So it's not just an issue of our planet, it's an issue of social justice and it's an issue of poverty. And do we want actually the poorest people that have contributed least to this problem to suffer the consequences? So we need to do it for all sorts of reasons. I would say another couple of things. The other thing that why we're in a unique position to be able to press ahead quickly, especially in Wales, is because Wales is the country in Europe, in the world, that is most blessed with the potential for renewable energy, whether it's onshore and offshore wind,